So, number 8 is road safety.
Okay.
And, sorry, just before I hand over, and again, I've said it before, but I'll say it again, you know, this tends to be one of those issues that the public do feel very strongly about, and it is always in the top 1 or 2 issues raised through the Your Views survey, and certainly when I attend public meetings as well, and clearly it can range from anything from dangerous driving to inconsiderate parking, speeding, all things that clearly can result in serious incidents on our roads. I'm pleased to say that following some recent engagement around adopting what is termed Vision Zero around the safety on our roads, trying to prevent serious casualties and road deaths. The leader of Bradford Council and the chair of the Combined Authority in West Yorkshire has written back recently following a joint letter that we sent John, and it's very positive in supporting our aspirations around adopting Vision Zero, so we'll discuss that on another occasion, but we will take that forward. And clearly, you know, when I talked earlier about launching the supporting people harmed by crime strategy, you know, sadly we did have a real live case example there where somebody spoke of their personal experience of losing, in that case, their father to a road death that was rigorously pursued by West Yorkshire Police to achieve a criminal justice outcome, but clearly nothing can take away from the loss in that case. But we do work very closely with the National Road Safety Charity Break, who are based in West Yorkshire as it happens, and I'm pleased that I've been able to provide some funding for them. And just to finish off, as you know, we've invested very heavily over the years in automatic number plate recognition technology, but again, that arena is evolving and we will need to keep that under review in the best use of that moving forward. And really pleased to say that the Saving Communities Fund has supported more than 25 projects in West Yorkshire addressing road safety in one form or another. And with that, I'll hand over.
We're grateful for that partnership approach, because as you've said many times, that's going to be the greatest solution to some of these road safety issues. So it's clearly features in the Policing Crime Plan for West Yorkshire, and then that's replicated in the West Yorkshire Roads Policing Strategy 2019-22, which we've attached. We share very passionately in policing your desire and others from community-based around Vision Zero. I think that's been the successes of some other areas in the reductions of killed and seriously injured, so I look forward to working with the 5 local authorities and other agencies on that. However, it won't dissolve or dilute our policing focus on the fatal fall, which will still remain, that I'll touch on later. I'm pleased to report that we're now seeing some of the benefits of the decision that we took 2 years ago to return dedicated roads policing officers to being white cap wearing roads policing officers and not a omnicompetent safer roads and neighbourhoods officers. They had to be at that time because of the reductions and the funding cuts to policing, but it was the right move to get back to a specialist, highly trained, professional resource to make the roads of West Yorkshire safer. More recently, we've also, unlike many other forces, we've also been able to introduce a proactive intercept team with different equipment, different training, and a more adept ability to really take the fight of criminality on the roads to the criminals in a proactive measure. And that goes alongside some of the previous investment that you've assisted with us around automatic number plate recognition and how that reaches out into the regional or national. And again, we have some of the most comprehensive systems in the country outside of London, and one of the only few dedicated ANPR intelligence units. We also work, again, out into neighbourhood police and local police in schools, safer schools officers and all sorts of other schemes. So we've got the whole spectrum of a response in that strategy. So in terms of the numbers and the collisions and those killed and seriously injured, my apologies that I identified just before I came down here today that actually some of the collisions we've given you for the last few years were incorrect, so we'll correct those in the report and when it subsequently goes out. And there's some data there of a different period as well, but in terms of fatalities, in 2016 there was 37 in West Yorkshire, 2017 there was 43, in 2018 it very sadly went up to 70, and in 2019 it looks as though it's come back down to 54. So there has been an increase over the course of that time, and that's similar to the national picture in terms of actual fatalities. There's some data there around serious injuries and slight injuries and some comparisons with some most similar force information as well. So the ongoing work has been similar to the detective crisis, has been about recruitment, retention, progression and development of roads policing officers and getting a comprehensive upskilling programme, and there's some new equipment in as well about how we equip our armed response vehicles and our roads policing vehicles to prevent and distract from pursuits, which can be equally as dangerous with a device called a sting device, which is a tyre deflation device. We've also changed some of our policies recently around quad bikes, motorbikes, mopeds, and we've introduced some other new equipment in terms of new motorbikes as well to be a more adept and adaptable response. Fatal Fall continues to be our evidence-based approach to reducing killed and seriously injured. It keeps coming back to excessive speed, the use of drink, drugs or other incapacitants, the wearing of a seatbelt and distraction for drivers predominantly through mobile phones and mobile phone technology. We're evidence-based, so we need to follow those through. New or returning to old techniques of using large good vehicles, buses, specialist equipment to actually try and enforce some of those areas. We're constantly trying to change and adapt to how we provide education as well as enforcement to drivers as to how dangerous it is in those fatal fall. We're also adapting and using new technology such as drugs wipes, which now routinely screen for cannabis and cocaine. And we continue to work at the bottom of page 5 with the national campaigns around drink and drug driving. Most specifically, the campaigns run in December, and so we've seen arrests from 243 in 2017 rise to 376 in 2018 to 456 in 2019. So again, that's an indication of the increase in the roads, specialist roads policing officers, I feel. Working with communities and listening to the feedback, we are well aware of Operation Steerside that's been running in partnership with Bradford and Operation Fall Mill in Calderdale, focusing on the fatal fall and responding to the community's desire to see safety and antisocial behaviour issues reduced on their roads. We work with with Close Pass, as it's now known, previously known as Safe Pass, again with a neighbourhood policing team, predominantly Leeds, Kirklees and Wakefield, again about the safety for cyclists on our roads. And again, we're pleased to report that predominantly it's an educational campaign rather than an enforcement campaign. And so again, we've got a partnership approach and some funding from other groups about the equipment. The Casualty Prevention and Central Process Unit, and I say those words very deliberately, its primary objective is casualty prevention. And obviously it does, as part of their enforcement activity, need to process things. They work with the West Yorkshire Casualty Prevention Partnership because it is a partnership approach into road design, road safety, which are obviously local authorities, as well as policing enforcement. They work with Highways England for the critical infrastructure, and they work with the courts and other providers around how we educate and help people as well as enforce. So from April to December, the 3 quarters of last year, there's 141,000 camera offences, which was a reduction on the previous year. But the vast majority of drivers, 40%, were offered and complete driver improvement schemes, which is about education. 25% were given a conditional offer, which again is about enforcement, and 20% chose or needed to go to magistrates' court because of the nature and the level of their driving. And there's some statistics there that casualty prevention and Central Processing Bureau do some fantastic innovative work, also looking at the criminal use of the roads as well as just the enforcement and education. So in terms of the more complex and specialist work, there's also the roads police officers working with insecures and roadworthiness with Highways England Health and Safety. Again, because some of the larger vehicles on our roads can prevent significant harm and potential for significant fatalities. So we've got a partnership working with them. But equally, we work with other agencies as well, whether it be DVSA, Majesty's Customs and Revenue, and local authorities licensing as well, with neighbourhood policing officers, neighbourhood staff and student officers. Moving forward, we have got our long-standing situation where we're trying to get to a place of having a live system for the uploading of dashcam and citizen reporting information. We have for some time been able to receive that in physical form, but the solution looks as though it's coming together for June of this year. But again, we're looking predominantly at education rather than enforcement. I don't particularly want to try and enforce my way out of it, but there's a desire with greater use of dashcam technology to promote education for those that need it and enforcement for those who don't. We also continue to work campaigns such as the One Life Lost campaign, working in schools, working with young people to understand their vulnerabilities on the road and the roadside, whether that be using their phones, telephones, headsets as well. So that's a long-term early intervention approach. And of course we're open to scrutiny in all that we do through our local authority connections and independent advisory groups who can give feedback, advice and scrutiny for roads policing issues. And we also use social media where we can as part of that wide preventative campaign. We've got particularly successful roads policing unit, Twitter and other social media, as well as the customer contact centre. We've engaged with programmes that you're very familiar with, Police Interceptors for 3 previous series, but we're not engaged with them at this moment in time. So that strategy is there that complements the police and crime plan and what I want to see across West Yorkshire, and we're doing everything we possibly can in a partnership approach and applying the same principles of early intervention and prevention and education before we get to enforcement. And the whole spectrum is there. So some good news in terms of fatalities and serious accidents, but equally still some challenges in terms of high numbers, and we're still want to see it reduce further, and hence why I return back to I'm pleased to hear you talk so positively about Vision Zero.
Yeah, no, thank you. There's again a lot in there, and you know, that fatal fall is certainly you know, the basis, isn't it, of the activity. We've touched on the Vision Zero, so I won't sort of ask or anything on that, because we will move that one forward with partners. I suppose it's just a comment on, you know, Cleve mentioned the data, John, within the report regarding the number, even though, yes, there has been a reduction from last year, the overall trend is up with regards to serious and fatal. Although, to be fair, I think the serious one has come down, but certainly the fatal one has sort of an overall upward trend. It's really just commenting on what you feel some of the reasons are for that, and how we perhaps compare with similar force areas.
Yeah, so our non-fatal injuries are coming in the right direction, and when they're not as high as some of the other forces, certainly compared to Lancashire and West Midlands, and our slight injuries. The kills are significantly higher. There's an unfortunate element to the data we provided on page 2, in the sense it's June to May, which straddles two of our most difficult periods. So I'm not avoiding it, but in the sense of we had a very bad year of 70, and that takes in most of the year. However, we've got some things to learn from Greater Manchester, because I think they've had Vision Zero for some time, and they've clearly got across the board lower statistics in terms of kills, serious injury and slight injury. So we've got some work ongoing with Mr Kingsman to see whether that's as a result of specific interventions, enforcement, or whether it's just a different nature of their road network, but I don't see it as being so. Or hopefully that it's not a recording issue for them either. So they are, through this Strategic Roads Policing Group, as well as the Camera Safety Partnership and the Road Safety Partnership, they're constantly looking at the numbers. So they're not all where we would want them to be in that sense. So I think we do need to go and see what some of the forces are doing in those areas, what some of the partnerships are doing.
Yeah, I think you're right to reference the Greater Manchester recording aspect, because we need to be clear that that is the actual case, but you would hope with these types of incidents that should be the case.
Yeah, I mean, for the residents of Greater Manchester, I hope it is, but it looks so different, and I am aware that unfortunately for them they've got some of the statistical issues ongoing nationally, but I think it's a standalone system, this. So I think we do need to go and see what they've been doing.
Okay, and as you say, a lot of the activity mentioned in the report has been in place for some time, and it's just getting your assessment of the effectiveness, what measures are being put in place to complement them, and in particular, are we confident now that the dashcam footage facility will indeed go live in June, as you've said?
As confident as I can be. If I told the Chief Constable it's going to be June, it'll be June, subject to other issues. Some of the delays you're well aware of is around making sure when that goes live we've got the officers and staff to actually deal with it. Because what we didn't want to do is to put something up and then not be physically able to deal with it. So that was some of the investment through the precept last year as well. So all things remaining equal, it should be then. In terms of some of the things we've been doing for some time, some of it is returning to it as well, as I've alluded to, really. I think we've had to return to our specialist role. We know how, in terms of education enforcement, to reduce or to make the roads safer, but sometimes about the balance of resources. So I'm confident and predict it's an area that I will want to be growing over the coming years. I definitely do. But it's just a balance to just see those new student officers coming through the system to then go into the experienced roles, because what I can't do is degrade the front line at the expense of these other areas. So I think it's somewhere I'm hoping we've hit our lowest ebb on, and that we'll be building over the coming years.
Just a couple of supplementaries. So in terms of the fatal four, are the bulk of those related to excessive speed and distraction, use of mobile phone? Yes,
so in terms of drugs and alcohol and seatbelts, but again, there's a combination. But again, it's usually speed and seatbelts. The distraction is always a harder one to prove in terms of, despite moving forward with the technological advances we're now getting, we'll see more and more cases of distraction where we can prove it evidentially through the electronic devices. It's usually speed and seatbelts that cause most killed and seriously injured.
And finally, on ANPRs, you know, I do take a specific interest in that, so I do lead for the Association of Police and Crime Commissioners, and did visit the team fairly recently. And as you know, there's a national system coming in, but again, that's got some issues around the functionality. And for us, it's not a race to the bottom. We want to retain some of the more enhanced aspects of it. But it was just given all the sort of focus around county lines and sort of intelligence gathering, whether we are utilising it more in that sort of arena, other than some of the more traditional sort of methods.
Yeah, so the lifetime team are there on a 24-hour basis to inform, to use the intelligence and direct resources where they can, whether it be from the mobile cameras or the static cameras. But the intelligence teams have all, both in the regional organised crime unit and in all the intelligence teams, have got access to the information and the data, so they equally are analysing it as well. So it's a rich source for whether it be child criminal exploitation, CSEA or county lines, for the identification of vehicles. So we're not wholly reliant upon the small team. They've all got access to it. So yeah, we're most definitely using it.
Yes, yeah, some of the more recent presentations I've heard around county lines at a national level has definitely
Yeah.
more reference to AMP.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, definitely.
Right.
We're seeing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything? Okay. Great. Thank you for that.